Hi, Shane Wilson here from the Meditation Learning Center. This week we're looking at this area of the Eightfold Path. We're looking at the third step of the path, which is skillful speech. Last week we looked at skillful thinking and how letting go and loving kindness and compassion play this role in our overall happiness and the happiness of others, and that by letting go, we can actually be happier people. And that letting go is found through our practice of meditation. And just really being mindful of that whole process. A couple weeks before that, on step one, we were looking at skillful understanding, which is actually the understanding of cause and effect, or karma, how our actions have a result. And the understanding of the Four Noble Truths, this teaching that the Buddha gave, that we do have stress, we suffer, and this is usually brought about because of our desires. And we could say usually because sometimes there could be a pain involved, that a lot of people would think that that has nothing to do with me wanting something, it's a physical pain, and that is suffering. So physical pain and worldly pain is still, something that we look at in such a degree that we desire things to be different, and that's the big overall umbrella desire. We want things to be different than what they currently are. But with the Four Noble Truths, the Buddha said that there is a way out of this suffering, and it's through this path that we're practicing here. So each week we're doing one step of the path, and I do these actually. If you want to know more about this, we run a weekly class, and this is kind of a synopsis of each class that we're doing. So skillful speech, week 3, we're looking at really 4 different areas. Now this is the moral conduct area of the Eightfold Path. The first 2 teachings, skillful understanding and skillful thinking, were the wisdom teachings. And these are the moral teachings: skillful speech, skillful action, skillful livelihood. And within skillful speech, the very first one that we're talking about, and I say one because there's 4 areas, being truthful, being kind, being gentle, and speaking, having meaning behind our words, whether it's meaningful or not. So, is it truthful? Is everything that we say the truth? We all tell lies. There's little lies and there's big lies, white lies. I guess that would be a black lie, a dark lie. But the question comes up, I really had to lie because otherwise I would have been hurting this person and that person. I would have hurt myself, and it was just better not to tell the truth. And this has happened to everyone, and it will happen to everyone. Even maybe on our deathbed, somebody might say, "How are you feeling?" "Oh, I'm feeling fine," just because we want that person not to worry about us, and then a minute later we're dead. But it's kind of a strange way of explaining, how we lie, but we do it habitually in many cases. So what we want to do, our lying, what is that action of speech? What is the consequence of that? Is it going to cause harm to somebody? Or is it such a small arrangement of words that it's put out there in such a way that it alleviates the suffering of others? So if somebody asks us how we feel, it's usually a habit that we say, I'm fine, everything's good, when maybe it isn't. So how big of a lie is that? In some areas of our life, there would be more lies. There would be bigger lies. Like let's say we're a politician, for example. Politicians, they're based on what people want to hear. They might have good intentions, but they know what people want. The majority of these people want this to happen. So that's what they tell people that they will do for them. And it could be somewhat of a lie. It might not be. But generally, they actually believe that themselves. They believe that in a huge way, that this is what I can do for these people. And a lot of times it doesn't come to surpass. It just does not happen. So whether we are lying or not, we want to look at we want to be mindful of it, of course, and we want to look at it from a karmic standpoint. If we wonder whether it was a good idea to tell this truth, to tell this lie, or whether it was a lie or anything, the barometer again is do we think that it caused any negative conditions for ourselves or for somebody else? In other words, did it cause negative karma? We can always look at karma because we are understanding this karma now, right? We can use that. Whether or not we believe in future and past lives or not doesn't matter. Let's just keep in the context of karma and how that can be useful for these ethical teachings. And so another area of skillful speech is it kind speech? More so talking about here is the being kind, and I think a good way of looking at this is imagine that we're talking to a small child and we try to talk kind and gentle to that child, or if it's somebody that we feel even on a subconscious level that we should be talking kind to them. I went into an area where I used to work, and I had a friend with me, a lady friend with me, and I was talking to the guys that I used to work with. Hey, Shane, how you doing? Hey, great to see you. What you up to these days? And I said, oh, it's great seeing you too, and I want to introduce you to my friend here. And they go, oh, hi, very nice to meet you. They're very kind and deliberate and they go, oh, nice to meet you. Okay, Shane, what are you up to? I said, going back to the old self. It's not that they aren't kind or talking to me and they're kinder talking to another person, the other person necessarily, but they're reflecting that in their speech. And so I like to think in terms of how we talk to children, how we talk to somebody that we are deliberately want to be kind to, like an elderly person, something like that. So what I'm saying is mindfulness. We must be very, very mindful, particularly when we're not speaking kind, when we're speaking very, what we could say, we could call it abrasive, maybe. We all probably know people that use speech in such a malicious way that they use it to actually harm other people. And they're so used to doing that sometimes they don't even really consciously realize they're doing it. But yet they do, because they've done that so much. They use words as weapons. And if we think in terms of, being gentle, the gentle speech is delivered in such a way that we want people to really understand where we're coming from as far as where we had been and where we are going, where we feel that the people we're talking to have been and where they're going as well. Now, there's a lot of people that believe that if they talk too gently, to others, that they'll get mistreated by them. They'll be taken for as, some kind of a softie or something. So they feel as if the more non-gentle they are in their speech, the more respect they'll have. And there's a lot of subconscious work behind this. And because there's a part of that might be true. When we meet somebody that's very, we could say, abrasive in their speech, we kind of stand back, let them, have their way and kind of hope that they're done with what they're saying, and so that they kind of move on. But is that the right way, for them, to carry on this a conversation with somebody? What's wrong with being, gentle with the way we speak to people? So what we're talking about again is mindfulness, being very, very mindful of these words that come out of our mouth. This is our main form of communication. And speech, not only the speech that we say, but actually what we write too. When we listen to music with words and lyrics to it, how important are those lyrics? I mean, they tell the story. Not necessarily only how they're sung, but how they're projected and how they're in the order of the words that are put out. And poetry is the same way. A gentle, rolling poem is, of course, it's delivered differently, but it's absorbed completely differently than some aggressive, type of poetry or an aggressive song. Some types of music that are put out there is very, very harsh, using profanity and things like this. But if we're completely mindful and we can ask ourselves, can we get this message out talking gently, or do we have to put it out harshly to other people? And generally we'll see that people will listen and be more responsive if we speak gently to them. Now, another area that is kind of pervasive, and this is the last area of skillful speech, is our speech meaningful? Or is it just gossip? A lot of times people, it seems like they're talking just so that they can hear themselves talk. And often when this happens, we hear the person speaking about other people in a negative way, making fun of other people, or putting a group of people down. So really the rule is if our speech is not, if it's not kind and gentle and truthful, then we shouldn't have to speak at all. When we do a retreat, we have a retreat coming up in September, and on these retreats, it's 65 hours of silence. So we're absolutely silent for 65 hours. All we're doing is listening to our inner dialogue, what's coming up for us, the thought process. And eventually that dies down too, and so it becomes very, very silent outside and inside. So do we always have to be talking? Is there times when we can just be silent and enjoy the silence, even when we're around other people? So is it truthful? Is it kind? Is it non-malicious, in other words? Is it gentle, non-abrasive speech? And is it meaningful? Is it useful speech that we can use and others can use too? These are really the four guidelines that we're talking about as skillful speech. Mainly look at the karma that we're creating or the karma that we're working with, and also just being very, very mindful, very much aware, of what is coming out of our mouth. And if it isn't something that's useful and kind, perhaps it shouldn't be spoke at all. I hope this helps. Thank you.